From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Driving a need.
So we don't have a ton of young people or other people that are just dying to get into the trucking industry.
A lack of truckers and new regulations have supply chains nervous about the future. Ag equipment demand.
Seems like it's going higher by the week, even by the day.
The market for pre-def tractors. And a historic week for commodities.
The market really is kind of in a panic mode, but the reality is we're really in a situation we've never been in.
What it means for farmers making planting decisions this spring. Today on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. What will commodity markets do this week following what was characterized as one of the most historic weeks in modern history? The Russian invasion of Ukraine sending global grain markets into turmoil with shipping from the Black Sea region all but on hold. Buyers are now scrambling to find supplies, bidding commodities like wheat to fresh highs. Soft red winter wheat futures hit an all-time high Friday as consecutive limit-up trading days meant wheat prices topped a previous high set back in 2008. Pro Farmer says you have to go back to 2008 to find wheat prices close to what we've seen today. Chicago March wheat futures contracts setting an all-time high of 13.34 cents on February 27th of 2008. Last Friday, the March 2022 contract traded up to 13.40 before falling back in midday. The crisis in Ukraine continues to fuel those markets as both Russia and Ukraine account for 30% of global wheat production.
I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years now, Clinton. I would say this is unprecedented in the kind of volatility we're seeing due to the conflict in the Ukraine with Russia. The market really is kind of in a panic mode, but the reality is we're really in a situation we've never been in. You got a lot of money in the system right now. You've got the world worried about production capabilities in Ukraine. You got drought issues. So when you look at the agriculture sector, there's so much being thrown at it right now. Last week's volatility was unprecedented, but the reality is that just may be the beginning. It could actually get worse as we build into the springtime if this conflict continues to rage.
While the winter wheat crop is already planted in Ukraine, the question remains if the country will be able to plant wheat this spring. As commodity prices surge, Reuters reporting the Biden administration is considering waiving the nation's biofuel blending mandate. Now, the idea is it would help stabilize surging prices for key food ingredients like corn and soy oil. The report says that the White House is worried about debilitating consumer food inflation, but commodity groups sent a letter to the White House Friday saying ethanol is part of the solution, not the problem. 6 groups, including National Corn Growers and National Sorghum Producers, the National Farmers Union, all urging the administration to allow the sale of E15 year-round. The groups say the move would ease the impact of oil market disruptions caused by the Ukrainian crisis, as fuel price inflation is happening at a quicker pace than food price inflation.
Absolutely, ethanol is part of the solution today. When we look at the U.S. stocks that we have, look at the price of ethanol versus the price of gasoline, we're a part of the immediate solution. And if we could get a few political barriers out of the way, that is something that we could deliver tangible results to lower fuel costs to U.S. consumers in weeks. And not months, not years, but in weeks. And that's just good for the U.S. from a national security standpoint, as well as an inflation standpoint.
Now, oil prices continue to rise right along with grains. Friday, April contracts topped out at $113 per barrel. Analysts are already saying Americans should prepare to pay up to $5 per gallon in many cities. Now, speaking of fertilizer, the Fertilizer Institute releasing a statement about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It says there's concern about the destabilizing situation, saying it will add additional pressure to a market already experiencing many challenges over the past 18 months. Now, Russia is the second largest producer of ammonia, urea, and potash, and the 5th largest producer of processed phosphates. The Institute says the removal of Russian product from the global marketplace will have an impact on supplies, adding that prices here at home are driven by global supply and demand factors, and 90% of global fertilizer is used outside of the U.S. And Brazil's crop may be getting even smaller. Ag Resource Company releasing their latest soybean crop production estimates for Brazil, and it shows a crop size of 119.5 million metric tons. Now, the last time Brazil's crop was under 120 was during the 2018-2019 season when Brazil's crop came in at 119.7.
We think the crop is now under 120. Rio Grande do Sul yields have been off anywhere between 45 and 50%. But we also saw some crop degradation in Mato Grosso do Sul, the southern part of that state, and in Mato Grosso because of all the rain. So putting it all together, a 119.5 bean crop is a big loss. And in fact, if I add in what the Argentinian crop is, about 38, 39, and Paraguay at 5, all combined, we're looking at 40 million metric tons of soybeans that were lost. That's 1.4 billion bushels. We've never seen anything like it.
Ag Resource thinks we'll see 89 million acres for soybeans and 91 million acres for corn here in the U.S.
AgDay weather, brought to you by AGI Nico. AGI Nico dryers have an average of 1 to 2 pounds heavier test weight per bushel than screen dryers. They can also save you 30% on average in fuel savings. That's money in your pocket. Visit aggrowth.com/Nico for more information.
Winter isn't over quite yet, and some places saw more snow and moisture to end last week. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us with a look at the week ahead. Matt?
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. We do have another busy week in the weather department. We've got a lot to talk about, so we'll start you off with our Weather Watch headlines here, showing you that very active week with both rain and snow likely. And then we've got a lot of moisture for places that are really drought-stricken out in the west, along with cold air that is going to invade really by next weekend. That's when we'll start to see a lot of that, and we'll show you that here coming up with a look at that jet stream in just a second. But a look at the precipitation shows you still, again, most of it going on east of the Mississippi. We'll see a couple of storm systems moving through, and that will bring upwards of 3 to 4 inches plus of rain, again, east of the Mississippi. But then back in the west, higher elevation snow and some rainfall will be much needed sight for many back there. And a look at the jet stream shows you that it is really digging out in the west as we head through the middle and latter half of the week, but the cold air comes in behind a system late this week, the upper Midwest, parts of the Corn Belt, and into the Great Lakes, and eventually swinging through the east is going to get very, very cold heading into next weekend, and that's something that we'll keep a watch on as we head through this week right here on Ag Day. And it's been a more typical winter for farmers near Buxton, North Dakota. We were at Chris Hong's farm last week. He says after a dry 2021, this year the region has seen ample snow and moisture. It's also been plenty cold. He doesn't expect to be out planting until late April. We'll have more on your forecast coming up.
After a historic week for commodities, what's next? We'll discuss that coming up next in analysis. And if you're in the market for a pre-def tractor, good luck. Machinery Pete says the demand is off the charts. He'll explain after weather. And this month, get off the bench and into the game. On March 13th, brackets will open for the 2022 Bracket Busters Challenge presented by Case IH. Now, farmers will take on farmers for a chance at a $1,000 top prize. Make sure to check it out at agweb.com/Bracket Busters for details, terms, and conditions.
Ag Day is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator, it's not just any closing wheel. Reach your yield potential. Pre-order by March 31st with coupon code AgDay for $2 shipping per wheel.
We're joined today by Jim McCormick with agmarket.net. Jim, as we look at what happened last week, obviously, or over the last couple of weeks in commodity markets, how do we deal with this as farmers, trying to wrap our arms around what it means for our own operations and for, going forward in this industry?
Well, I think what it's actually, the reality is we're probably going to get some unprecedented chances that we've never really thought have been there. The movement we're seeing, because the market is so worried about supply situation, not just in the United States, in the world, you're seeing price rallies that would have seemed unfathomable just a few weeks ago. These moves are potentially going to allow a farmer or producers out there to lock in profits, not just for this year, next year, the year after. You're looking at probably kind of a multi-year, maybe a generational type of move that's going to give some unprecedented opportunities. But that being said, Clinton, you got to be very, very careful, you're a producer, who you're dealing with. Counter risk parties are going to be extreme. Margins are very, very tough right now. So you need to develop a plan move ahead and also just make sure that your banker's involved with this situation in your planning, because the worst situation you get in is getting a marketing plan that blows up at the wrong time.
You know, and I think that's right. You know, all the plans that we made in December, even the 1st of January, it feels like we have to throw those out and start over.
Exactly. Now, you know, what we're telling our customers to do is move to the options. They're expensive. There's no doubt about it, folks. But with the movements we're seeing right now, even with this high expense, you can really lock in some phenomenal prices. And be prepared. This market, you may buy a put for 20, 30 cents. If this conflict gets worse in the Ukraine, you may see another $1, $2 go up. Those puts are going to expire worthless. Do it again. You don't complain when you buy car insurance and you don't use it that year. You still buy it the next year. This is how we got to look at it. Is insurance, but we also know historically what goes up comes down twice as fast. We are rationing demand, and we are going to encourage production. It's just a matter of when.
Absolutely. Great advice. Appreciate the insights as always, Jim. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
To contact Jim McCormick at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Get in the game and be part of the 2022 Bracket Busters Challenge presented by Case IH. It's farmer versus farmer for a chance to win the $1,000 top prize. Head to agweb.com today to fill out your bracket. Ag Day weather is brought to you by Zoetis. Even though calves don't wait for perfect weather to arrive, you can count on Zoetis to be there. Share a picture of your newest calf and you could win a calving season survival kit. Enter now at calvingseason.com.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here. And I know, Matt, we talked a lot about the drought monitor last week, but this week some of these places could be getting some rain and moisture.
Yeah, we've got a lot of moisture. Very active week, as we mentioned before, especially in the northern Rockies, but again in the east as well. This could help some of those drought conditions, especially in the west, but again, still seeing some parts of the country. We're really talking about northern Texas into Oklahoma, back here in parts of Nevada and the Cascade Mountains there, still seeing the extreme to exceptional drought conditions, but we are going to see some much needed moisture across the middle of the country, down through parts of the southeast and back to the west again as well. Most of that going to happen in the northern Rockies. Here's a look at the precipitation as we head really through all of this week, and most of that again going on east of the Mississippi, seeing a couple inches of rain here, even some thunderstorms associated with a couple of those storm systems that are going to roll their way on through, and all that continuing up into the northeast. Meanwhile, across the northern tier, some lighter precipitation, likely some higher elevation snow as well, especially going on in parts of the northern Rockies there, even down the Cascades, seeing some much needed moisture as well, and some of that making it into the Four Corners region. So that is going to be some good news, and the jet stream really favors a very active pattern, especially as we head through the first half of the week. You see the cold air locked up there to the north, but some chilly conditions and a big dip in the jet stream down all the way into the Four Corners region. That's going to allow some of that moisture to come through, but then as that first system gets on out of here, look at this big dip in the jet stream, a ridge forming out in the west, which will signify some more moisture to the north, but then could also bring some of that south in through the middle part of the country, and another storm system riding up here heading into next weekend could bring some snow and even some cold air filtering into especially the upper Midwest and into the Great Lakes. Eventually that moves towards the east as we head through next weekend. But temperatures this week below normal for the western 2/3 of the country, right up the east coast dealing with above normal conditions, and again we're looking at below normal precipitation across really the Gulf Coast, a little bit of the east coast here and back out in the west. Meanwhile, Pacific Northwest and right through the middle of the country, an area that's seen a lot of moisture, still looking at a bunch. Temperatures next week still reflecting that below normal across most of the country, with above normal conditions there right in the east and staying above normal for a lot of the country heading into next week with regards to precipitation. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Dyersburg, Tennessee, thunderstorms likely, a high of 67 degrees. Iowa City, Iowa, rain and snow likely, a high of 37 degrees. And Craig, Colorado, partly cloudy and cold, a high of 25.
The farm equipment market is just wild these days. Up next, Machinery Pete tells us about the demand for used pre-def tractors. Machinery Pete has been saying it for months. The used equipment market is red hot. Well, today he's talking about the demand for pre-diff tractors.
Okay folks, today let's talk used loader tractors right around 100 horse. Now the market the past year just been on fire. It seems like it's going higher by the week, even by the day, and particularly on the pre-diff pre-tier 4 models. Now let's zero in on one particular model, a John Deere 6420, which of course at this point is about 15 to 20 years old. Now last Thursday on a farm auction in East Central Oklahoma, right on the Arkansas state line, this 6420 with 2,941 hours on it and a loader sold for $70,500. Now if you go to our website, machinerypete.com, and click on the free auction price data section and punch up 6420s and then filter by the highest prices first, you'll see that $70,500 last Thursday. That's the fourth highest auction price ever on a 6420 with a loader. But interesting to note, the top two sale prices ever both have come in the past year. When on our own Machinery Pete monthly online auction, this amazing 03 model out of Mitchell, South Dakota with only 156 actual original hours on it and a loader sold for $91,500, so record price. Now, interesting to note, the tractor was purchased by a dealer out west. And we've been seeing this a ton the last 6 months, dealers piling into the auction market looking for tractors in particular because used inventories are so tight. Now, this dealer out in Washington had this 6420 for sale, and you can see sale is pending now, had it advertised at $129,000, and frankly, I'm not surprised one bit.
All right, thanks, Pete. Now, supply chain problems have been a big story the last year or two. Up next, how challenges in the trucking industry may drive product shortages in the coming years.
Your next piece of equipment is on machinerypete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on machinerypete.com. Closed captioning on AgDay is brought to you by BASF, helping you do the biggest job on earth.
A series of trucker convoys last week drew thousands of truckers to the road. Now, the protests are raising awareness about vaccine mandates, but also bringing attention to a host of other issues facing the industry. And as Time Morgan reports, a truck driver shortage is stifling supply chains and causing issues across the entire transportation sector.
Trucks, I love them, I love them.
In the late 1970s, trucking gained interest thanks to the big screen. But today, it's a job that doesn't boast the glamour it once did.
So we don't have a ton of young people or other people that are just dying to get into the trucking industry. It's no longer a glamorous gig that people really want to get into anymore. So we are going to continue to see shortages.
Supply chain issues as a lack of drivers plagues the trucking industry.
We're currently about 80,000 drivers short in the trucking industry. In 10 years, they're thinking it's closer to 250 to 300,000 jobs that we're going to be short in the trucking industry.
Kelly Crepeau is a safety director and compliance manager for True North Compliance Services. She navigates the regulations that have a tight grip on truckers today.
I think that we're losing not only to those short haul careers, but other careers that they can be in a more controlled environment and a little bit safer and, again, have more conducive to a family life.
In late January, both the U.S. and Canada put in a vaccine mandate which requires truckers crossing the border to be vaccinated. And just a week later, a new CDL requirement hit the trucking industry.
This particular regulation went into effect in 2018. It was passed final rule, final register is what it's called, in 2018 to go into effect, full effect in 2020. The FMCSA did decide that not all of the parts were ready to go, so they gave us an extension to 2020, and then that extension went even further into 2022.
Crepeau says agriculture is exempt as long as the driver stays within the 150-mile radius air bubble. But if you travel outside that zone, the new regulations could be stifling.
If you were to go outside that 150 air miles to take, let's say, your corn to a grain elevator that's outside the 150, all of the federal regulations would apply to you, and that would include the commercial driver's license requirement.
The new CDL requirements could be yet another barrier for attracting new and younger truck drivers. As Crepeau says, some truck drivers are finding better paying jobs that allow work-life balance.
We're losing drivers too to not even truck driving jobs that are local. They can go work in a warehouse, an Amazon warehouse, pulling packages for the same amount of money and very little risk.
Reporting for AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan.
All right, thanks, Tyne. And that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on the Farm Country.